gonna read today. I'm trying to read 30 pages a day. You've seen how many books I have, right? Like I have a ton of books. Some of them I've read and some of them I've not. And it's a goal of mine to like really finish all the books that I have. I buy a lot, from abebooks.com. Instead of Amazon, go to abebooks.com, abebooks.com, because they source from local booksellers. And it's just like a different model than the big giants, right? Today, I'm going to read Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. Checking out Dr. Joe Dispenza's stuff was suggested to me by someone a while ago, and I fairly recently started acting on that suggestion. Excuse me. It is it's just a little bit of allergies here. Hand sanitizer. Yeah, so I'm gonna do some reading, and I hope you like it. It's gonna be chapter 1. I've already read the breakdown, the introduction, which breaks down like everything that the book contains. So I read that last night, but I thought, hey, it'd be awesome to go live for anyone that wants to just listen, and have me in your ears while you do whatever you do today. But I'm going to read 30 pages today. This is going to be chapter 1, opening the door to the supernatural. Okay? Okay, let's see what we got. What's up? Hello. I hope you enjoy. Thank you for being here. I hope you enjoy me reading this book. A lot of the times on this channel, I play my own music, but it's really important for me to pour back into myself. But I thought that I would also showcase that on this channel as well. Okay? Subscribe to the channel and my story will become more and more clear. It's so good to have you. Now we're going to read chapter 1, opening the door to the supernatural. Okay. As spring was ending and the first glimpse of summer was approaching, what first appeared to be a typical Sunday afternoon in June 2007 turned out to be anything but typical for Anna Williams. The French doors from the living room to the garden were open wide, and the thin white curtains danced lightly in a breeze as scents from the garden floated inside. Streams of sunlight shone brightly all around Anna as she lounged comfortably. A chorus of birds chirped and trilled outside, and Anna could hear the distant melody of children's laughter and playing, splashing, coming from the neighbor's swimming pool. Anna's 12-year-old son reclined on the sofa, reading a book, and she could hear her 11-year-old daughter in the room directly above her, singing to herself as she played. A psychotherapist, Anna worked as a manager and board member for a major psychiatric institution in Amsterdam, whose profits totaled more than 10 million euros annually. She often caught up on professional reading on the weekends, and on this day, she was sitting in her leather chair reading a journal article. Little did Anna know that what looked like the perfect world to anyone peering into her living room that day would become a nightmare within minutes. Anna felt a bit distracted, noticing that her attention wasn't fully engaged in the material that she was attempting to study. She set her papers down and paused, and suddenly, wondering again where her husband had gone. He left the house early that morning while she was taking a shower. Without saying where he was headed, he had simply disappeared. The children had told her that their father had said goodbye, giving each of them a big hug before he left. She tried to reach him on his cell phone many times, but he hadn't returned her calls. She tried one more time, no answer. something definitely felt odd. At 3:30 p.m., the doorbell rang, and when Anna opened the front door, she found two police officers standing outside. "Are you Miss Williams?" one of them asked. When she confirmed that she was indeed Mrs. Williams, the officers asked if they could come in and talk to her. Concerned and a bit confused, she complied. Then they delivered the news. Earlier that morning, her husband had jumped off of one of the tallest buildings in the center of the city. Not surprisingly, the fall was fatal. Anna and her two children sat in shock and disbelief. Anna's breath momentarily stopped, and as she then gasped for air, she started to shake uncontrollably. The moment seemed frozen in time. While her children sat paralyzed in shock, Anna tried to hide her pain and her stress for their sakes. An intense pain suddenly shot through her head, and she simultaneously felt a deep, hollow ache in her gut. Her neck and shoulders instantly stiffened as her mind frenetically raced and from thought to thought. The hormones of stress had overtaken her, and Anna was now in survival mode. How stress hormones take over. From a scientific standpoint, living in stress is living in survival. Who can relate to that? When we perceive a stressful circumstance that threatens us in some way, one of which we cannot predict or control the outcome, a primitive nervous system called the sympathetic nervous system turns on, and the body mobilizes an enormous amount of energy in response to the stressor. Physiologically, the body is automatically tapping into the resources it will need to deal with the current danger. The pupils dilate so we can see better. The heart rate and respiratory rate increase so that we can run, fight, or hide. More glucose is released into the bloodstream for more energy available to our cells. And our blood flow is shunted to the extremities and away from our internal organs so that we can move quickly as we need to. The immune system initially dials up and then dials down as adrenaline and cortisol flood the muscles, providing a rush of energy to either escape or fend off the stressor. Circulation moves out of our rational forebrain and is instead relayed to our hindbrain. Hind? I'm actually not sure about that word. Let me know if you know this word, hindbrain, so that we have less capacity to think creatively and instead rely more on our instinct to instantly react. In Anna's case, the stressful news of her husband's suicide threw her brain and body into just such a state of survival. In the short term, all organisms can tolerate adverse conditions by fighting, hiding, and fleeing from the impending stressor. All of us are built for dealing with short-term bursts of stress. When the event is over, the body normally returns to balance within hours, increasing its energy levels and restoring its vital resources. But when the stress doesn't end within hours, the body never returns to balance, and in truth, no organism in nature can endure living in emergency mode for extended periods of time. Because in our large brains, human beings are capable of thinking about our problems, reliving past events, or even forecasting future worst case scenarios. Who does that? I do that. Future worst case scenarios, and thus turning on a cascade of stress chemicals by thought alone. We can knock our brains and bodies out of a normal physiology just by thinking about an all too familiar past or trying to control an unpredictable future. Every day, Anna relived the event over and over in her mind. Oh, I got a notification. Okay. What she didn't realize was that her body did not know the difference between the original event that created the stress response and the memory of the event, which created the same emotions as the real life experience all over again. Dang, this is so wild because I really relate to this in terms of replaying stuff in my head. Anna was producing the same chemistry in her brain and body as if the event were actually happening again and again. Subsequently, her brain was continuously wiring the event in her memory bank, and her body was emotionally experiencing the same chemicals from the past at least 100 times a day. By repeatedly recalling the experience, she was unintentionally anchoring her brain and body to the past. Emotions are the chemical consequences or feedback of past experiences. As our senses record incoming information from an environment, clusters of neurons organize into networks. When they freeze into a pattern, the brain makes a chemical that is sent throughout the body. The chemical is called an emotion. We remember events better when we can remember how they feel. The stronger the emotional quotient from any event, either good or bad, the stronger the change in our internal chemistry. When we notice a significant change inside of us, the brain pays attention to whoever or whatever is causing the change outside of us. And it takes a snapshot of our outer experience. That's called a memory. Therefore, the memory of an event can become branded neurologically in the brain. And that scene becomes frozen in time in our gray matter, just as it did for Anna. The combination of various people or objects at a particular time and place from the stressful experience is etched in our neural architecture as a holographic image. That's how we create a long-term memory. Therefore, the experience becomes imprinted in the neural circuitry, and the emotion is stored in the body, and that's how our past becomes our biology. In other words, when we experience a traumatic event, we tend to think neurologically within the circuitry of the experience, and we tend to feel chemically within the boundaries of the emotions from the event. So our entire state of being, how we think and how we feel, becomes biologically stuck in the past. As you can imagine, Anna was feeling a rush of negative emotions, tremendous sadness, pain, victimization, resentment, shock, fear, anxiety, worry, overwhelm, anguish, hopelessness, powerlessness, isolation, loneliness, disbelief, and betrayal. And none of these emotions dissipated quickly. As Anna analyzed her life within the emotions of the past, she kept suffering more and more because she couldn't think greater than how she constantly felt. And since emotions are a record of the past, she was thinking in the past, and every day she felt worse. As a psychotherapist, she could rationally and intellectually understand what was happening to her, but all her insights could not get beyond her suffering. People in her life started treating her as a person who had lost her husband, and that became her new identity. She associated her memories and feelings with the reason she was in her present state. When anyone asked her why she felt so bad, she told the story of the suicide, each time reliving the pain, anguish, and suffering all over again. All along, Anna kept firing the same circuits in her brain and reproducing the same emotions, conditioning her brain and body further into the past. Every day she was thinking, acting, and feeling in the past. And since how we think, how we act, and how we feel is our personality, Anna's personality was completely created by the past. From a biological standpoint, in repeatedly telling a narrative of her husband's unaliving himself, Anna's literally couldn't get beyond what had happened. Now, one thing that's coming up for me, and I'm curious what y'all think, is like, Anna is like a psychotherapist, right? And I'm really curious what she would say, because this is a story about her, but it's not entirely in her words. And I want to hear what she would say about grieving. We all have to grieve. We have to set a time aside to grieve, right? So if we are really upset by a loss like the one that she's describing in this book, right? Or that he's describing about this case study that he has in this book. What if, instead of being like, hey, she's just replaying the past, hurt, stress, emotions, current reality is your past, what if we all just gave ourselves permission to grieve for however long it takes? That's what's coming up for me as I read this, but maybe they'll go into this, okay? Maybe they'll explain. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, so he's saying Anna literally couldn't get beyond what had happened. All right. A downward spiral begins. Now, I know there's going to be a turnaround for the purposes of this book and the solution that this book talks about, and I'm excited to learn about the solution. But I'm just saying, the downward spiral could be a part of grief, or it could be avoided if you make time to grieve. That's my, but I don't think we have the best grieving tools, in our Western culture. So I don't blame anyone, I'm just like, that. This is what's coming up. Okay. Downward spiral begins. So Anna could no longer work and had to take leave of absence. Hell yeah, man. I'd have to take leave of absence if that shit happened to me. Of course. During that time, she found out that her husband, although a successful lawyer, had made a mess of their personal finances. That sucks. She would have to pay off significant debts that she had previously been unaware of. And she didn't have the money to even begin. Not surprisingly, even more emotional, psychological, and mental stress began to add up. Okay, well, that's tough. She's not just dealing with his unaliving himself. Now she's dealing with his financial messes that she didn't know about. I mean, that's betrayal on betrayal. That's hard. Anna's mind went into circles, constantly flooded with questions like, hey, how will I take care of our children? How will all of us deal with this trauma in our future? And how will it affect our lives? Why did my husband leave without saying goodbye to me? How could I not know that he was so unhappy? Did I fail as a wife? How could he leave me with 2 young children? And how will I manage to raise them by myself? Oh, I feel for that person, man. I feel for her. Then judgments crept into her thoughts. He shouldn't have unalived himself and left me in this financial mess. What a coward. How dare he leave his children without a father? He didn't even write a message for the children and me. I can't stand him for not even leaving a note. What a jerk to leave me and make me raise these kids alone. Did he have any idea what this might do to us? All these thoughts carried a strong emotional charge. Oh, what's up, Kylie? Hi, Kylie. Hi. We're reading a really good book today because I'm trying to read 30 pages a day. And so I'm just reading out loud for everyone. So this emotional charge was further affecting her body. 9 months later, on March 21st, 2008, Anna woke up paralyzed from the waist down. Oh my God, that's wild. Within hours, she was lying in a hospital bed, a wheelchair beside her, diagnosed with neuritis, inflammation of the peripheral nervous system. That's wild. After several tests, the doctors could not find anything structurally as the cause of the problem, so they told Anna that she must have an autoimmune condition. Her immune system was attacking the nervous system in her lower spine, breaking down the protective layer that coats the nerves, causing paralysis in both her legs. That is crazy. She could not hold her urine. Oh my God, pobrecita, this is wild. She had difficulty controlling her bowels and had no feeling or motor control in her legs and feet. Oh my God. When the fight or flight nervous system is switched on, it stays on because of chronic stress. The body utilizes all of its energy reserves to deal with the constant threat that it perceives from an outer environment. Therefore, the body has no energy left in its inner environment for growth and repair, compromising the immune system. So because of her repeated inner conflict, Anna's immune system was attacking her body, and she had finally physically manifested the pain and suffering that she'd emotionally experienced in her mind. In short, Anna could not move her body because she wasn't moving forward in life. She was stuck in her past. And for the next 6 weeks, Anna's doctors treated her with huge doses of intravenous dexamethasone. I've never read that before. And other corticosteroids to reduce inflammation. Because of the added stress and the types of drugs that she was taking, which can further weaken the immune system, she also developed an aggressive bacterial infection for which the doctors gave her huge doses of antibiotics. After 2 months, Anna was released from the hospital and had to use a walker and crutches to get around, and she still could not feel her left leg and found standing very difficult. She couldn't walk properly. Although she could hold her bowels a bit better, she couldn't control her urine. Poor thing, man. That's wild. As you can imagine, this new situation was adding to Anna's already high stress levels. She had lost her husband to him unaliving himself, and she could not work very much to support herself and her children. She was in serious financial crisis, and she had been living in a hospital paralyzed for more than 2 months. Her mother had to move in to help, and Anna was an emotional, mental, and physical wreck. And although she had the best doctors and the latest medications from a reputable hospital, she was not getting any better. And by 2009, 2 years after the death of her husband, she was diagnosed with clinical depression. So she started taking even more medication. Oh my. Consequently, Anna's moods swung widely from anger to grief to pain to suffering to hopelessness to frustration to fear to hatred. Because those emotions influenced her actions, her behavior became somewhat irrational. At first, she fought with almost everybody around, except her children. But then she started to have conflicts with her youngest daughter. Okay, and then the next section is called Dark Night of the Soul. What's up, Rise and Shine? I love that. I love that. I love that name. Y'all, I'm going to cap it there. Okay, I do want to read more today, but I have to cook breakfast for the fam here. So that's what I'm going to do. And subscribe to my channel, follow me and my story, where I'm from and all that stuff. It becomes clearer and clearer with time. Thank you for being here. I'm going to hop back on soon. I just have to go make some food now, but let's do self-care for not only ourselves, but for each other. Okay? Thank you, Rise and Shine. I appreciate you. and I'll be back, okay? Love and gratitude.